Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Smarter Campus podcast, where we are changing education one conversation at a time. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Austin Levinson, an award-winning international educator, AI integrator, and a program designer based in Bogota, Colombia. Austin, I know there's so much more that I didn't touch on. If you could just tell the people listening a little bit more about yourself, we can jump in.
Well, I'm a critical thinking guy at the end of the day. I was a teacher for 21 years. I remember one time I walked into a staff room. This is when I first was teaching in West Contra Costa County in Richmond, California. And there was a newspaper on the table that said, "Unexpected Resistance in the Gulf War." And I looked at it, and the headline was just pulsing off the page. And I said to the people who were sitting there, a couple of teachers, I was like, "Did you see that headline? Unexpected Resistance. What was unexpected about it?" They looked at me, "Oh, yeah, we saw it." I'm like, oh no, these are the people teaching our students. They're not actually analyzing what's around them. So I don't know. That's always been my thing, is helping people to think, sparking that discourse that it's going to make them think, asking good questions. That's a little bit of
Yep.
my persona as an educator and as a human.
That's great. So one thing, you recently pivoted into the private sector working with a company called Megamind that does some super cool AI stuff. So how did you get into the whole AI education thing?
All right. So as an educator, in my last few years, I developed a gifted and talented program,
Okay.
and I was getting pretty deep into design thinking, into PBL, and I had the privilege of working with Nouveau X, which is a design thinking school based out of Cambridge, and they started to partner with some schools around the world, and they were doing some of these great kind of design thinking. They call them studios, and one of them was about stop motion video and other things. And I said, "Hey, let's get an AI one going." And I helped them to they kind of developed it, and I gave them some feedback. I was the first person in the world. I was privileged to be able to pilot that AI. It was called Collaborative Futures, and we were developing screenplays for a futuristic film in which the protagonist has some kind of an ethical dilemma around AI. So before getting into the whole unit, I had all the students, these are high school students, elective class, pick some AI medium, be it a piece of a TED Talk, a podcast, a piece of music, whatever they wanted to, and develop a discussion protocol around that. And so we had a great basis for some of the ethical considerations around AI. And then we got into this unit, and we were developing using Midjourney and ChatGPT, some of the screenplay and some of the imagery. And we got into just to some deep discourse and incredible and controversial discussions around it. This was about 2.5 years ago, so this is in the early stages.
That's super cool. How have you seen from 2.5 years ago that change for what you're doing and it's possible today?
Well, one of my favorite moments was when my student Alejandro said, "Mr. Austin, can we change what ChatGPT gives us?" And I said, "You must. And if not, you're just kind of." And so, but that still comes up. That still comes up in conversation almost every day. That's such an integral part of AI literacy. It's putting our fingerprint on it. It's analyzing and seeing if the output is what we want it to be, what we want to project to our audience. And so I think that that kind of still carries through as a through line. But other things that have changed, well, I think that there's more urgency now around AI literacy and the need to have some fundamental understanding from different stakeholders, from parents. I've got a 12-year-old son. If I don't know what's going on with AI, he's already started to dabble with AI companions, or at least some of his friends have. I've got to be on top of that and be able to discuss that with him. There's AI toys. My mother was going to buy my son an AI toy for his 8th birthday. I dissuaded her from doing so. I should have done it just for the sake of experimentation, but just being aware of that. I've given AI literacy sessions for parents, for teachers, and a lot of the leaders don't know what's going on,
Yeah,
and so it's super important.
what would you say the space is right now? Like you said, you given a lot of webinars to parents, teachers. Like how would you say the general public is feeling right now?
It is such a mixed bag.
Okay.
I've seen school leaders that are still putting their head in the sand and saying, you know what, we're not dealing with this right now. We're putting it on a back burner. Like, okay, well, your students aren't. They're actually using it more every single day. I think that in the space, I think that the students, there's more interest on the part of many students, I think fueled by a lot of great leaders in education, the Amanda Bickerstaffs, the Stacy Cratchervilles, a lot of people that are leading in the space by the Saba Kidwais that are giving educators and students the intrinsic motivation to want to use AI as a thinking partner and not want to use it just to get to the point to point B. That the focus on the process, the Mike Kenses of the world, there's a lot of people doing this, that they're really helping a lot of the educators and the students get buy-in to, you know what, I don't want to cheat with this. I want to actually use this in a way that becomes a thinking partner, and that's how I'm going to be needing to use it in the real world, in the business world, in professional environments. So I think that that's been a very positive shift. You know, Michelle Ament, with the human intelligence movement, a lot of the people, engaging in conversations around how do we shift what's being measured so that it's not just chat GPTable. If homework assignments and essays are just easily found in those ilks, to what degree should we be shifting how we're assessing it, what we're assessing it, why we're assessing things? So I think that those are some really positive changes that I see, and those are changes that give me hope. But unfortunately, there's still a lot of people who haven't gotten off the starting blocks. We got to keep on kind of shouting out loud so the people in the back can hear, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. So what skills do you think are important for a student to be learning right now?
Well, I'm going to start with one that is relevant to me because it's one that is rarely spoken about, and it's photography and videography. And I wouldn't say it's my number one, but it actually touches upon all the other skills.
Okay.
So when I learned photography, and my dad and I would shoot film, and then we would get it developed, and a couple of days later we get the pictures. You couldn't really evolve a picture like you can now. So now I take a picture, I look at it, and I think, what's the story I want to tell with this picture? How am I going to change the shot, the angle? How am I going to change the lighting? I think about what I want to evoke in that picture, what feelings, who might the audience be, what am I going to use it for? And that's actually, obviously right there, you're into critical thinking, you're into creativity, you're into considering your audience, you're into multiple perspectives. And those are obviously a lot of the skills we want to develop, but it happens to be a high intrinsic motivation for all stakeholders. Everybody loves photography and taking pictures and looking at pictures. And so if those who can see my background right now, it's a picture I took this weekend. Yeah. And I ask people the question, what is it, right? It asks questions, tells a story. So that's one. I think that, critical thinking is thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
You see it, Zach. Everyone talks about critical thinking. But let's break that down a little bit. What is it that we want to get to in critical thinking? We want people to evaluate. We want people to analyze. We want people to go deeper. So we want there to be discourse around it. We want people to be able to ask salient questions around topics, whether it's AI literacy itself or whether it's something else. And so those are some of the pieces, but I think those are all tied into photography and videography. But again, that's not my number one, but I just think it's one that's often overlooked. And it also bridges to how do we help youth and young people develop passions when there's this massive algorithm causing them to be passive consumers. And so photography, cooking, those are ways to do so. And if we can find ways to infuse creativity, critical thinking around some of those passions, we're kind of killing two birds with one stone in a beautiful way.
Yeah, I really like what you said because it kind of does highlight like the fact that we're in this consumer culture world, right? Where you're powered by scrolling and dopamine punches, right? And like, I think it does align with like the problems in education. It's like, why am I learning what I'm learning when it has no application to what's going on in the world? So like, how do you think you could educate on like how scrolling on TikTok for 3 hours might be bad and how we could replace that with like photography, and then how AI can, this is a big question, how AI could allow you to take those passions and make them into, monetization, businesses, jobs, excitement to the world.
Well, let me start with a question that I heard, or actually a statement that my 12-year-old son's classmate said to him. She said to him, TikTok and ChatGPT are my best friends. And then she went on to complain about the fact that on vacation in Portugal a few weeks ago, her parents took away her cell phone for several days, and she missed the new video of her favorite influencer the day it came out. So unpacking that a bit is going to lead to some of the answers, but what's behind that? There's obviously parent involvement. My stepfather, when I told him this, he said, it's a sign of the times. Yes and no, right? It's how we as parents, as educators, really guide students and guide children into the proper ways to use it. Are we going to go back into the social media sinkhole and not learn anything from those lessons from a few years ago? The idea is no, but how do we not do that? Well, one way is to make people aware. I like to just talking about it. You and I on LinkedIn, on different mediums, we like to talk about this. I'm sure in parties and other moments, we're sometimes talking about these things and just getting the conversations flowing, I think is a great way to do it. But I think that, I mean, getting a little more to your question, how to develop, I mean, the algorithm that they're dealing with, what chance does a 13-year-old child or 13-year-old, youngster have with a $1 billion algorithm that's pulling them towards the light? I think it's really difficult. And so I think there's a couple of different things. One, awareness. Two, some limits and some norms. And like the cell phone, oh, you have to get a cell phone, it's social suicide. Well, no, there's actually ways to survive without a cell phone at age 12. My son doesn't have one. He's not going to have one in eighth grade either. But fortunately, several of his friends don't. But I think that there's also then, what are you going to substitute it with? What are you going to replace it with? What are some things that you're going to do to draw their interest? I've given a lot of workshops to parents about board games and strategy games and how to get kids excited about them when there's all great thinking behind that. But it's not like, here's a gift, go play. It's sit down with them, right? There's no magic bullet to being a parent. Well, actually there is. It's time. Spend time with them. And so sitting down with whatever they're doing is a great way. So I don't know, those are a few different things. How to capitalize on AI to develop those interests. That one I'll throw back at you because I haven't, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think the thing that's cool about it, and like I often talk about, like I went to a school, liberal arts school, and they always would talk about like we're a change-making school. We empower you to make any change, and it's like kind of like you could go make any change, but that change usually takes a bunch of money and a bunch of time and a bunch of people that help you. But now you don't need that. Like you can go build a business. Like the whole idea of a $1 billion company off of one person is still far-fetched, but the idea that one person can do a lot is very real right now. So like the thing that I always get super excited about is like if a kid wants to be an astronaut, AI can help him be an astronaut now, right? It's like whether you're in the housing projects and you know what I mean, in a terrible living situation, like there's this technology now that can teach you just about anything. And like, I think that people should see AI as like, I can take this thing that I want to do and learn how to do it. Take what I know, help me empower me to do things with that and use AI to teach me what I don't know. Like, I think a lot of the issues with AI is that like, I like to say, ChatGPT is really good at making stupid look pretty, right? So then people like don't use it to do stuff, but like I use AI to teach me how to do things rather than using AI to actually do things. And like, I just think it's cool because I always talk about like, I'm a 25-year-old kid right now. Like, this should be the most exciting time ever to be starting something new because you can do anything that you want now. And it's just a few tools away from teaching you how to do that. And like, I think there's so much, and I'm going to bring it back to a question with you, like so many common misconceptions. And I think it all branches off of like, that whole idea of AI is good at making stupid look pretty. Like people think there's no value in it because they're using it wrong. And I think that all starts in parents and education, right? So like for you, you said I don't often get to talk to people that talk to a lot of parents. Like what are the feelings of parents that you've talked to recently?
Well, so I think that many of them, and obviously it depends upon who you're speaking with. One parent recently told me this is going to be known, and I'm starting to see it as the age of addiction. That if you look back at this time in history, this is the age of addiction. And I did some thinking about that, and that's pretty deep. And what you're talking about in terms of doom scrolling and the passive consumption of TikTok videos. I mean, we were watching a Gordon Ramsay cooking show the other day, and there were social media chefs with 2.3 million followers. And I mean, you see it anytime you walk anywhere, you get outside and you just see people, how much they're just watching videos. And what do you do with that? Certainly parents who do as I say, not as I do, right? No more screen time. Excuse me, I'm busy, I'm watching this, right? And so I think that we have to be conscious, and I've spoken to people about that, and they're more conscious, and I think there's more parents who are really being aware of putting their cell phones away when they're at home at certain times with their kids, which is great. I think that it's also bringing the children into the fold. I mean, this weekend with my youngest, we went just to a cabin in the woods next to a river, and we started to shoot some video and some photos with a plan that we're going to make a movie this week. and we just started to curate which is some of the images and things. And so it's yeah, it's screen time, but it's obviously getting into some creativity. It's getting into some storytelling, and I think that I know that more and more parents are starting to see possibilities that you're describing, right? How can we use this to make a business? I've spoken to a lot of parents who are doing some cool stuff with AI, and I'm like, do you speak with your kids about that? No, no, no. Why not? Right? Even if you don't get into the nitty gritty of the agent that you made and the functionality of it, you could at least show them that you did this and you actually used, you created this way to automate certain things and actually give the agent certain decision making capabilities. And just that exposure, I think is going to give them a lot of curiosity and a lot of the wonder that I think certain bits of convergent thinking is starting to kill. So, there's a lot there that we are, both of what we said, but I think that a lot of the parents, I think, are starting to be a little more conscious of it and a
Okay.
little more aware of the impact of this passive consumption, and we have to kind of find ways to avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like I always tell people, like we're at a crossroads right now where like the world is either going to get way better or way worse, right? Where it's like, I mean, worse and better is up for definition, but the whole idea that like this stuff could be used to change the world to where you could do whatever you wanted, right? Where it's like if I wanted to go do art, I could go do art and make that into like a life, right? Or we're all going to be sucked into our phones and 20 people are going to be running the world that run those companies that were sucked into the phones on, right? So like what do you think, this is another big question. What do you think like is the things that we need to focus on to make it go the good way instead of the bad way?
Okay, the wolf has
Yeah.
two sides to it. Well, I mean, look at today though. It was like somebody evil said, "I'm going to take this big provider down," and so now nobody can use any of their websites. It happened today, right? And you posted on something today that you obviously wrote yourself, and so I think that storytelling piece is part of it, playing into that creative piece. Paul Anderson, who's a big NGSS science consultant, amazing guy who helped us to onboard NGSS science in our school, he said, don't kill the wonder.
Yeah.
How do we create things to not kill the wonder? So that's a bigger question. I'm going to answer it with a question, but how do we first not kill the wonder, and then how do we foment that curiosity and wonder? And those are big questions, and I think that there's ways to do that in a school culture. For example, a friend of mine's a director of a school, and he said curiosity is one of the big things we want to foster this year. I'm not quite sure how to do it. I said, well, why don't you say that in your opening session to the entire school? I want to promote curiosity in our entire school. And I don't really know how to do it. Do you guys have any ideas? Show your vulnerability. Show
Yeah.
that you don't have all the answers. Involve them in the process. Have the entire school community in a design thinking process to bring curiosity to the fore. And he's told me that he's done some of that. He didn't want to relinquish that much control, but he loved the idea and he did some of that. But I think that getting messy is such a
Yep.
big piece of it. In workshops that I do, I'll often start with the largest drawing space I have in the room and draw a giant squiggle on it and start by saying we have to be prepared to get messy. School director, principal, superintendent, are you cool with everybody in this room getting messy? And they get the nod in the space right there. You know what? Every single time I do that, Zach, at least three different people or groups physically walk over and refer back to this is what he was talking about getting messy. We don't know the answers and it's okay. And I
Yeah.
think that having a culture of failure being a step towards part of the iterative process, getting messy, being vulnerable, that's one big piece. And then that curiosity piece and not killing the wonder. Those are a couple of them. There's a lot. I mean, what else? What am I missing? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I kind of want to touch on what you're talking about right now because I think it's the root of the issue in higher education, lower education, all of the educations that you can have. It's the fact that the system is so used to the person teaching knowing more than the person learning, right? Especially in higher education, these people are experts in
Mhm.
what they talk about, and they're very uncomfortable talking about what they don't know a lot about. And this is the first time ever. I mean, I don't know, I haven't been around that long. First time in my lifetime where something came out where everyone started at the same exact point. Like there was a few people that knew more about these things, but when ChatGPT came out, race started that day. Everyone goes with this stuff. And people don't feel comfortable talking about what they don't know a lot about, so they don't talk about it. And I love what you said that it's like, hey, why don't we just say, I have no idea what I'm doing. Let's talk about it. It's every university that I've seen that has implemented AI well, that's how they start. It's like, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing. We're all just going to talk about it. We're all going to learn about it. So like
How do you
how
get people to leave their ego at the door first, right? So that's part of it, but there's other stuff.
yeah, I mean, how have you besides drawing a squiggly line on a whiteboard, like which is incredibly effective, I would assume, like how are you kind of trying to foster that like vulnerability?
Well, so if I was going to give a workshop today on
Yep.
AI literacy, I would tell them, you know what? I'm in this AI circles, which I am in this great 6 week kind of community vibe where we learned a little bit about vibe coding. I made my first web page using vibe coding. I made my fourth custom GPT, but the first one that I'm actually using that's functional. And now I'm going to make my first AI agent. And you know what? I have no idea how it's going to come out. I have no idea if it's going to work. I know that when I made my first custom GPT, that was around the time I was doing my workshop, I told them I made a custom GPT today and it's not working how I want it to, and I'm frustrated. And I'm going to keep on going. And now, if I could have gone back to those same people and say, a few months later, I made my fourth one and I'm using it almost daily. And so I think that wherever we are in a process, I mean, all of us are tinkerers in some way. I'm sure you're tinkering with six different things. I'm
Yeah.
tinkering with vibe coding. We're about to start tinkering in Claude. And so showing them that, you know what, I'm about to start doing this. This is how I'm approaching it. I'm purposefully not going to read a lot and watch tutorials. I want to kind of try and just go into it and play around with it a little bit. And you know what? I'm hitting my head against the wall, and that's okay because actually the wall is soft, it's cushioned, and I'm going to take these bits. And you know what? Now I could talk about. I mean, just take the custom GPT example. I made a fourth one, and in the group that I was with, almost all of them, it was their first one, and they were focusing on kind of the content of it, and I was focusing on the iterative process and saying to them, let's look at what we were doing, each of us, in trying to improve upon it. And that's a skill set that we want to have. Is there's so many aspects of life where we're taking iterations of things and we're looking at what questions can we ask, what can we do to improve, what are some of the perspectives and different questions. A questioning schema I think is really helpful in that. So I don't know. I think that if I was going to do that, that's what I would do. I mean, what are you tinkering with, and how would you incorporate that into a PD tomorrow?
All of the things. I have chronic, I don't know what to call it. Inability to finish things, but the ability to start everything is what I like to say.
Uh-huh.
You know, you get stuck in this ADD Virgo where it's like I can't do anything because I'm doing everything
So
at
tell
one
me
point.
one thing. Tell me
Oh,
one thing you're working on right
Claude
now.
Code. Claude Code's the coolest thing, in my opinion, that
Yeah.
exists.
Uh-huh.
I have lots of things that come into my brain up here, and I make all of them. And I make all of them real. It takes a lot of time. But the thing that I'm tinkering with, in all honesty, is the ability to do anything. I have this hot take where I say I can do anyone's job just as good as they can if they don't know how to do it with AI in any way, shape, or form. So like I'll talk about that publicly and then people will like be like, "Hey, can you do this?" And I just say yes, and then I figure it out. And it's like a new hobby for me, seeing if I can
Have you
do
ever
things
done
that
that live? Have you ever done that live on a webinar or in a session?
no, but I would love to. I would happily
Yeah.
do that with anyone listening where it's like, "Okay, do this and I'll show you how I would do it." Like one of my
When you
favorite
come
things
on
to
my
do.
podcast, when you come on
Okay.
my podcast, I'm going to ask you to do that.
Let's do it. So I mean, the one like my favorite thing I do is a funny thing is like I try to learn one thing every single day, like whether it be about a bird or the ocean or something that I saw, and I'll use Boodlebox and I'll write like a huge paper on something. I'll be like, go write me a 10-page paper on the La Jolla Cove sand shark. And then I'll take that and I'll put it in Notebook LM and then I'll listen to it as a podcast. And it's like I can learn anything. It's super cool. Like anything that pops into my head. But we are coming up on time. I have one question or two questions that I ask everybody, and I want to make sure I can ask both of them. First one, if you could snap your fingers and change one thing about education, what would be changed after you snapped your fingers?
Excellent, excellent question. It's something I've been asked it before, but it's a moving target and it's evolving. And I would say, and I'm going to quote Paul Matthews in his book that he came out with
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago, the purpose of education is to create learners and wonder and people, and it's not to produce work. And if I could snap my fingers and have everybody see it through that lens, that'd be a massive, massive shift that would make a big, big, big positive impact. It's very similar to Dan Fitzpatrick's ideas in infant education as well. That's my first one. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love Paul Matthews. He was my first podcast guest out of all of the podcast guests, which is
Talk about thought provoking. He's
yeah.
unbelievable and makes you think. I take notes. I've circled back with questions to him. I've used them for discourse with other people. It's no, he's a great thought provoker. He's awesome.
Okay, last question. What's your favorite way to use AI outside of work or education? Like mine's cooking.
All right. I'd say it's Mid-Journey. I'm having so much fun as a photographer and as somebody who likes to fool around with textures, a lot of macro photography, with reflections in the water, with kind of images. I don't know if you know who Andy Goldsworthy is, but he manipulates nature. He's this Scottish genius artist that manipulates nature, and he then takes pictures of it. He'll spend 6 hours organizing leaves in a certain way, waiting for the light. And so I think it's using Midjourney to go where I might not be able to go either physically or photographically. Having heaps of fun with that.
That's
Yeah.
super cool. Well, Austin, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on for an episode. Any lasting thoughts for the people listening?
Well, I'll say that we started conversing before we started recording, and I look forward to conversing after. But I think that, don't be afraid to talk about things, is what I'll say. Engage in discourse with people who know more than you, with people who know less than you, with people who might have more shallow viewpoint or deeper viewpoint. Engage in discourse. This is a time in history where we need to be communicating with the people around us. I think that some of us are working remotely, some of us are spending a lot of time with AI, and I think that communication has a whole bunch of different functions, but mostly it's that human connection that we just is absolutely relevant and critical more than ever right now. So keep the connection going.
Well, thank you so much. And for everyone listening, we'll see you next week.